Hello and welcome back to Rogue Review's second episode of RPG Reviews. Last time we looked at the utterly amazing mouse guard. Today we ask you the question, do you have a crystal heart? Crystal Heart is an RPG developed by the absolutely two excellent people, Eran Aviram and Aviv Or, who draw the up to 4 players comic strip online. It's an absolutely brilliant webcomic, all about the gaming adventures of some friends. Now, one day their GM decides he has a brand new campaign. In fact, a brand new whole system that he's created that he wants to try out playing with them. So in the pages of the comic, he basically brings it forward and illustrates it to them. It's based around the Savage Worlds engine, which I know many of you love and will cover in future reviews in more depth, but it holds a new twist on there. The idea is, in this world, people's hearts are literally stone. And the idea is that these hearts decay and wither, and they basically make people harder and bitter. But to gain special powers, to gain an advantage in the world, you can remove your heart and replace it with a crystal. Now, these crystals are remnants of the bygone age. A centuries-old millennia ago, the idea of the world was once not as it was. The world was technologically advanced, there were spirits and amazing things happening. However, all that was lost, and the memories of it all but forgotten, apart from a few who hunt among the relics of the world in the 5 lands of this place, and they find, hidden away in the depths of caves, in pools, in lava pits, in bottomless forgotten temples, crystals, manifestations of this pure energy which give people special powers. They could warp nature, they could throw lightning, they could make plants grow, they could walk on walls. And the agents of this agency called Sin, S-Y-N, are in charge of finding these crystals throughout the world and using them for the greater good. Well, in terms of that, you'll have to go deeper and deeper into the organisation before you find out more. But in terms of a novel twist on a system that many people like, it has a huge amount of value in terms of a creative approach, a brand new world, lots of world building and different operations. So the idea is this is a thing that you can really enjoy and give a fresh new life to your gaming table. It's very, very approachable for people of all ages. I got my children into this quite happily, where they were basically I think it was like 8 and 12 years old. They were very, very happy taking to this. And the idea is that they love the idea of creating the characters, the popular art, the beautiful graphics as well, and especially with examples from the actual webcomic to help. It really helps you see what the characters around, whether you're kind of a northern barbarian, a church acolyte, you could be a pirate in the islands, and there's all kinds of things that you could basically become. You could basically become a officer of Sin in the Nordstadt group. This originally went to Kickstarter, and I supported it Kickstarter, and obviously it's had various different expansions since. There's been action cards that you've basically been able to buy from like rpg.com. There's lots of extra content which I've managed to collect and add. And each thing adds a sort of a new twist to it. For example, there are separate quests you can go on, there are separate artifacts you can get, you can expand your characters, you can give them different advantages. In terms of what there is to offer, it's a world that keeps expanding. And obviously, as the pages of the comic keep continuing online, there's brand new storylines being added. So the lore is being adapted, the lore is being fleshed out. There's lots more detail in there in terms of the different operations, the interactions between the characters, and also the organizations and what their true purposes really are. One of the really great things, which again is made clear in the actual pages of the online comic itself, is that's only one interpretation of how everything could plan out. But in the actual rules, it encourages you to kind of tweak the world to your own design and find different solutions and kind of work out who the big bads are, how the crystals exactly interrupt, where these actual power comes in the first place. So let's have a little bit more look about how the game works. So you decided to become an agent of Sin. Very, very exciting decision. Now, the first thing that needs to happen is your heart, your stone, useless, hurtful heart needs to be removed, and you need to be fitted with a harness. Now, this crystal harness is kind of like a stasis chamber placed inside your chest, which can contain a crystal. Now you can call upon these crystals to kind of give you extra bonuses, extra advantages. They will of course affect your personality. They'll affect your actions. They'll affect the way you play the game. You can change your crystal at different times if you find a new one, though they are of course quite rare. So having a new one will become a big deal. So let's see the different crystals available. So let's talk about crystals. For example, the buddy crystal. This crystal can be described as a yellow bulb with purplish streaks, giving the strange impression of a joyful fruit. Or this one. This is basically called conscious sense, which is pink, white, and elongated. It's like a thin spheroid. You could have a dance, you could have dumb luck, you could have headlight. There's all sorts of different themes you can come up with in terms of shape, size, disposition, all kind of behaviour. Now, what it is about each crystal is they have, for example, a benefit. What you basically have is this kind of gives you a stat bonus in terms of what you can actually physically do in the game. It might give you +2 for this or +2 for this, etc. The disposition is kind of like how it affects your role-playing style. So if you have buddy system, you are delusional. Everybody is nice. Even the most horrible person secretly wishes me the best. I just need to help dig down for that friendliness to bring it to the surface. So it makes you a little bit gullible, basically. Whereas, for example, conscious sense makes you thin-skinned. You're very, very basically susceptible to anyone's opinion of you. Dumb luck could basically have a dumb luck rule, for example. Of course, you've got bad luck if things go wrong. If you have the dancer one, it's all about sort of like image and perception and quality. However, if someone's better than you at something, you become very, very jealous. And this kind of leads straight into your role-playing. So depending which type of crystals that you discover, they'll give you fantastic advantages, but they'll give you extra challenges to your role-playing. And as you go along, you can basically explore different types and different styles, and even different people playing the same crystal in different adventures could have completely different adventures within them, depending on how they chose to interpret the role-play of that crystal. Exciting. In terms of the land of Crystal Heart, the world itself is divided up into 5 major lands. There is Masaya, kind of like a desert plains culture. There is Fjordstad, kind of a Norwegian, more technically advanced environment. There is Bogovia, think like Transylvania hyped up with vampires and werewolves and that kind of things. There is the islands, it's like Hawaiian island culture, and there is Zingama, think like Aztecs, jungle tribes, that kind of thing. And in terms of what's developed in the actual lore about them, the settings are very, very different. So they have their own technological feel, their own styles, their own political alliances, the kind of disposition of the heroes that might come from there. For example, a typical Bogovian environment, you might expect haunted castles, you might expect villagers living in fear of the Burgermeister and various things that hunt in the shadows. In terms of Fjordstad, you might be adventuring on the steppes, finding technologically hidden chambers buried deep beneath ice flows. In terms of the island culture, you could be basically thinking, you might be finding yourself transported to Moana, exactly, where there is tropical paradise abounding. There is things like strange freak whirlpools caused by crystals buried at the bottom of gigantic pools. There could be waterfalls flowing upwards. There could be strange new diverted species of creatures such as parrots with 15 heads. I'm maybe exaggerating there, but you get the idea that in terms of creating an environment where virtually anything is possible, there is so much that can be done to add to the lore, to design more, to work out like the political alliances between the countries, exactly how many floating islands have been spotted this year, in terms of the migration patterns of people and the interaction between the characters and the environments is really great. So, the way the actual mechanics works is, as I said, based on the Savage World system. So, within this, you basically have main attribute dice. So, you have your agility value of your character, you have your smarts, your spirit, your strength, and your vigour. And within it, you have things like parry, toughness, charisma, and pace. So determine the kind of things that you're used to. For example, vigour is more or less constitution, spirit is more or less intelligence, as is smarts. Pace is how quickly you move, parry and toughness in terms of fighting, recovering from wounds, and charisma is more like how you like it to influence other characters. So you generally start off with one attribute being linked to a certain type of die. For example, this person is not very, very smart, so they have a D4 for smarts. They have D6 for vigour, they have D8 for strength, they have D10 for agility, and they have another D6 for spirit. Fairly obviously here, a d10 is very, very good, while a d4 is very, very bad. As with the Savage World system, you're basically making a roll and you're trying to hit a target score of 4. As long as you get a 4, you succeed, which is great. Now, if you get more than a 4, every extra 4 above that will give you what's called a raise. So, for example, if you were to roll your d8 and get an 8, well, that's excellent. You've got a success with a raise, which generally means something better happens. If, however, you were amazingly fortunate to roll a 12 and a d12, for example, you've got a success with 2 raises because it's 2 lots of 4 higher than that 4 stat. There's more as well because as heroes, you get to roll a separate die, a separate hero die, as well as your chosen ability die, which basically gives you 2 different chances. So in this case, if one die succeeds, the other one gives you another chance to basically get on with your adventure. Obviously, within this, you're still trying to hit a 4. Against you, you have basically another rank and file of the enemy oppression. So most minions will only just have the 1 stat die, whereas any sort of special enemy characters might basically have a hero die the same as you. In a similar way, most hits will just take out any one minion style, or obviously a more character bad guy will have a little bit more of a challenge in terms of being disposed. So, what else can we say about your character? They might have hindrances to give them a little bit of extra character depth. They might have edges, which give them a bit of advantage. They'll have certain skills that they can basically use either to replace or join with their basic skills. For example, notice is how observant they are, stealth and throwing. You can work this out. In terms of combat, it could be doing fighting with a sword or basically shooting, brackets throwing in terms of missile weapons. But why stop there? Why not create your own? My son and I created this one called Ember Bright. It's a novice crystal. Looks a little bit like this, a kind of a glowing, shimmering piece of coal. What it does is it basically gives you more strength and power. You could basically affect it in different ways. It could let you pull off a feat of strength or ignore a wound, give you stone skin to kind of ignore damage. You've got to work out what the exact balance it does, and you kind of got a mixture with that. For example, although it gives you like a +1 to fighting strength and vigor rolls, it might make you short-tempered, impatient, or hot-blooded. It's fun to kind of mix and match and see what you can do with them, really. It really encourages you to use your own creativity. So what is a game of Crystal Heart like? Well, for those of you who are used to Savage Worlds, it is very much a kind of sense of feeling out what makes this particular world special. The core mechanics themselves are tried and tested. Most people games, you know how this works. They're very similar to the ones used in, for example, Fate, or for example, Demon Hunters. The multiple dice approach does really give you a sense of unique characters. Whether you have like a D12 in one stat or a D4 in a different stat, it will really, really make a difference and affect how you play. You'll find yourself nudging towards the idea of playing to your strengths and trying to avoid your weaknesses apart from where there is no other chance, and even that offers you very, very good role-playing moments. It's not necessarily the case of when you have a hammer, every solution looks like a nail. It is the idea of the kind of teamwork within a party of agents, depending upon whose skills work well. You might initially try a certain approach and then find out that your dice rolls are letting you down, or as a party, there's a better way of solving this. A really brilliant idea is using the different crystals over the course of a campaign, for example, whether you find that the crystal that you're currently using is serving you well, or whether you want to basically try a different approach, giving you different bonuses, allowing you to really kind of remake and evolve your character as you go along. And as we've said, let's say a party has access to 5 crystals between three agents. Well, those 5 crystals, depending on those 3 agents, will give completely different opportunities, depending upon their background, where they're from, the interactions with other people. A really good part of this is also the 5 different lands. Having 5 distinct different areas of different heritage and personality really make a difference in terms of the settings that you can do. It's a little bit of everything. If you want to basically create kind of a Frozen North style campaign, yes you can. If you want to basically create a balmy, temperate idea of cruising, basically seeing the sights of the islands, yes you can. So within the actual world itself, there's lots of different opportunities for expansion and different feels of games. I basically wrote my own one, which was basically in Masaya, the idea of called The Grass is Always Greener, which actually sent off to the guys who wrote the game, and they were actually quite impressed at the time, which was pretty cool. So the idea of there was a crystal suddenly being unearthed in the middle of a desert, and it kind of made this lush oasis from nowhere. and was this actually benefiting or hurting the nomadic tribes that were going around the area? So using the world law. The Mazain people, for example, are ones that basically like to move on and have a very not sedentary style of life. So they were given the challenge of, well, if you stay in this particular location, things will go well for you, but it's kind of against your traditional culture. So how are you going to interpret that, and which conflict is going to be in place? So a certain amount of the adventure is based around finding and locating and looting these crystals, and then which you keep for yourself, which you basically send back to headquarters to be processed and analysed and advance the overall arching plot further. A big element of the whole purpose is, what are these crystals for? What are they actually orange? What are their purpose? And within the game itself, as I've said, there's different interpretations of that you can choose to carry forward in your own particular campaign. Also, the actual role of sin itself. Is it this evil shadow organisation, or is it a benevolent factor that's really helping the world for the good? You get to decide. You get to kind of work out behind the scenes what's going on. So it gives you a world to play in with certain ideas of advantages and sort of directions where it's nudging you towards. But ultimately, there's so much more there that you can adapt yourselves. So if you want to play a very sort of like combat heavy theme action extraction game with like secret agents rappelling down walls, you can do. If you want to place a more sort of like persuasive social negotiation game with different morals and ethics as the background, you can do. If you want to kind of create a very sort of like technological imbalance between certain areas and other areas, yes, you can do. And within all of this, there's the area of the bygone age. This centuries ago, 700, 900 years ago, the world was very different. So what's been lost since? What could be unearthed that they don't know what it does? Something's created, it's a personal force field generator. No one's seen this thing before at all for centuries. How could this change the world around it once it was discovered? And various other ideas like that. So within a kind of sandbox environment, there's loads to enjoy. Getting a game together for this, very, very simple. Just tell people to read the webcomic. It's up4players.com. You can search Crystal Heart. There was a pay what you want version available on RPG Now for a while. There's obviously the Kickstarter following on from there. Please do find it, because this is a lovely, fresh approach to a game system that you might know and love, but in a completely different setting. So, Crystal Heart, definitely worth checking out. Now, as ever, if you want to get in contact with us, you can find us at rogueartistcreations.com. Facebook is Rogue Artist Creations. Twitter is at Rogue A Creations. Our Instagram is Rogue Artist Creations. And you can find me, as ever, as GMFirst at rogueartistcreations.com. Please like, please subscribe, please pass on. We're trying to keep this going. We're trying to basically explore different areas and keep this interesting for you. So, thank you very much, and we will see you next time.